Hey crafty fam, it's Alex Vanover and welcome back to my craft room. And in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make beautiful cardstock embellishments using your Cricut. And I'm going to give you some advice here in just a moment about the invitation itself. But I do want to let you know that February 2020 is wedding month on my channel here at DIY Alex. So make sure that you subscribe below and ring the bell next to subscribe so that you don't miss any of these new tutorials coming out. But even if it's after February 2020, I have tons of valuable wedding content on my channel, so make sure that you check that out. And you can join my Facebook group called Cricut Brides and Wedding Crafts. I'll put the URL right here on the screen. So anyway, let's talk about invitations. So I'm going to give you some real life advice from a real life DIY bride about invitations. I know a lot of you probably bought your Cricut because you wanted to use it for wedding invitations. And there is a way to help yourself save some money on your invitations by making them, but it's not by actually making the invitation part itself. The actual invitation with the information on it about your wedding, in my opinion, is a waste of time on your Cricut. Because even if you print then cut or if you write it with a Cricut pen, by the time you buy all the materials and spend all the time to actually make these on your Cricut, you can buy it faster and easier online at sites like Zazzle.com. So here in just a moment, I'm going to show you what that looks like to buy your invitations on Zazzle, because I think that really is the best way to help yourself save some money and time. So then when your Cricut comes into play is making actual cardstock embellishments using your machine. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how to make this beautiful gatefold cardstock jacket for your wedding invitations. You can also do things like add belly bands and other things like that to help your invitations look intricate and expensive when they're actually not so bad. So let's get started. So I highly recommend that you use a website to order your actual wedding invitations. And by that, I mean the actual cards inside the invitation with the information on them. So I really like Zazzle.com for this because I just think it's a great site that I have used myself in the past, but there are others out there as well. I always love how they're constantly having different sales that are like site-wide and specifically on wedding invitations as well. So you definitely want to check out all of the different options they have because they have a lot more than just invitations. But if you decide to do wedding invitations, I want to show you what I really like about their options. So let's scroll down and see if I can find one like the one I ordered. So I guess it's kind of similar to like this one, but anything that you select, you're gonna be able to click on it and you're gonna be able to see all the details of the way the invitation is gonna look. Then on this right-hand panel is where you can customize it. So in the first screen, you're gonna like pick the size you want, the shape you want, the paper you want, and all that kind of good stuff. And then if you continue, you're gonna be able to personalize it with your and your fiance's information. But what I love is when you scroll down, it shows you all of the matching invitation suite pieces that you could order if you wanted to, which I think makes your life so easy because you could literally match like your RSVP cards, your detail cards, your thank you cards if you wanted to. If you are one of those people where like matching your suite is really important to you, this is gonna make your life so much easier. I did order some that match my husband and I's actual wedding information from 2 years ago, and I thought these were so pretty. So I'll show you these toward the end of the video. And I also ordered RSVP cards as well to match them. But anyway, so I encourage you to use a site like this to get your wedding invitations because it's literally going to make your life so much easier, you guys. By the time you buy ink and possibly a printer and you spend all the time getting these guys to print and then cutting them out, it's just going to take you a really long time. And like, as you can see, these are like $1.50 per card, but as you up the quantity, they get cheaper. So if you're ordering like 150 invitations, you're going to be able to save, this says a volume discount. You're gonna be able to save more on that, plus combined with like the site-wide offers and stuff like that, it's really going to help. So I recommend that you pick a few of these that you really like and you customize them with the information that you think you want and then order them as actual samples. You can literally just order one of them. That's what I did. And they're gonna cost you a little bit more, of course, because they're just samples, but I highly recommend that you order a few that way you can help make up your mind using your actual invitations in person. And then you need to pick what you're going to do embellishments on if this is what you want to do. And I chose an invitation set from Design Bundles. You all know I love Design Bundles and everything they make. But the reason I chose this set, so it did cost $20. It was not a super cheap invitation set, but it comes with 6 different elements. So that's 6 different ways that you can make invitations that all match. And that's what I really loved about this, is you can try several different types and see what's going to work best for you without buying multiple templates. And like the score lines and stuff are already included. And when you upload these into Design Space, they are automatically sized for 5x7 invitations. So this is actually the one I ended up using. This is the gatefold style card. And this is the actual size that it imports into Design Space. So all you have to do is attach the score lines to the invitation, which I'll show you how to do in just a minute. And that's literally it. So that is so worth the cost of the actual template itself. But one thing I wanted to explain to you guys is I told you already about keeping in mind the specialty cardstock costing more if you're going to do some fancier invitation types. And this SVG template shows you what size you're going to need depending on what you choose. So like this invitation, for example, has 3 different pieces. If you choose to do it all on 8.5 by 11 paper, you could cut this piece and then you could cut this piece and this piece probably on the same piece of paper. I'm not positive, but you could, you know, break it down into 8.5 by 11 cardstock, or there's one on here, this one. If you choose to use the invitation that looks like this, you can see that you're gonna need 12-inch wide by 14-inch cardstock, and that is gonna really, really up your cost. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing your invitation types. I know you guys wanna make some really, really beautiful invitations. Keep in mind how expensive that can become if you decide to go really, really fancy. So I love that this template outlines this for you and it gives you different options. So I will link this for you in the video's description. I am an affiliate of Design Bundles and also of Zazzle.com. So if you choose to use the links that are in the description of my video, I do make a small commission on your purchase without any extra cost to you. So I would really appreciate you using those links. It does help me support my channel because I have to buy a lot of supplies in order to make these videos for you guys. That would help. So thank you in advance for that. But let's go ahead and jump into Design Space and I will show you what it takes to cut out and make an embellishment like this. All right, guys, I want to take a quick break from this tutorial and tell you a few words of advice before you commit to the actual invitation that you're going to be making for your Cricut. And my first piece of advice is that there is such thing as too intricate of a project for your Cricut. A lot of the templates that you're going to be looking at online are intended to be laser cut. So if you pick an invitation that is super, super intricate, your Cricut may not be able to handle it. So make sure that you do several test cuts and several mock-ups of your invitation before you actually commit to what you're going to make. And that brings me into my second piece of advice, which is that the more intricate of a template that you choose, the longer it's going to take to actually cut. So this invitation, which you'll see later in this tutorial, takes less than 25 minutes to cut per invitation. But if you pick a super intricate template that takes 45 minutes to cut and you have to make, let's say, 100 invitations, that's like over 60 hours of time just cutting your invitations, not including assembly, addressing the envelopes, sealing them, or stamping them. So make sure that you keep that in mind and make sure that you time your invitations as you're cutting the samples so that you can see what kind of time you're looking at. My third piece of advice is to make sure that you check on the size that you're gonna have to make the template so that you can cut it on cardstock. Because if you have to make it more than 8.5 by 11 or 12 inches by 12 inches, you're going to have to buy specialty sizes of cardstock online that you probably can't find in the craft store, and that is really gonna up your cost. So keep that in mind when choosing your template. And last but not least, after you make each of your mock-ups, let's say you make 3 different types of mock-ups, make sure that you fully assemble them, put them in an envelope, and take them to the post office and ask the post office to weigh them and see how much they're going to cost to mail. But I do have a pro tip for you that I used during my wedding to help save yourself a little bit on postage. And what I want to suggest that you do is check ebay.com for forever stamps that cost less than what forever stamps cost right now. That's what I did for my wedding postage, and I ended up getting really, really beautiful stamps that are really, really different and unique than anything they're selling at the post office right now. So that's a pro tip for you, and I hope that helps, but let's get back to the tutorial. All right, so once we're in Design Space, I've already uploaded like downloaded and extracted my file. So I'm just gonna upload the gatefold card for you guys and show you how to use that. So these are the exact measurements that it already was in that template photo that I showed you guys. This is already the measurements that it needs to be in order for this centerpiece to fit a 5x7 invitation. And that is gonna make your life so much easier. Because typically if you buy a template off of, let's say like Etsy, you're gonna have to size it yourself and try it several times to make sure that you get it right. But you'll notice over here that there are 2 different layers, and this says cut, but it shows a box around your invitation. This actually needs to be a score line. So go ahead and select that layer, and when you go up to line type, you're going to change that line type to score, and then you're going to keep this one cut so that it cuts out the invitation. But you want to make sure that you select both of these and then click attach. That way it's going to score and cut on the same piece of paper and do all the work for you. But it is literally that easy, you guys. That is what I love so much about this template. Then we're going to click make it. All right, we're gonna leave the material size 12 by 12 because for some reason it's not giving me the 8.5 by 11 paper option. So it's probably too close to the borders of the piece of paper, but I promise you guys I have done this multiple times and it can work. So I'm gonna leave it the 12 by 12 material size even though we're not. So then we're gonna go to continue, and Cricut is gonna connect to my Maker. And so the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be using 65-pound cardstock. So I'm just gonna set my setting on light cardstock. Make sure that you do a cut setting with your, or test cut with your paper so that you don't cut an entire invitation and wait like 30 minutes for this thing to cut and then realize you're using the wrong cut setting. So I also love that it's gonna tell you when you need to load in your different tools. So it's gonna begin with the scoring wheel, which you're gonna load into clamp B, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment as well. And then we're going to need the fine point blade after that. So if you have the Cricut Maker, you need to use the scoring wheel for this project. But if you have the Cricut Explorer series, the scoring stylus will work just fine. So let's flip over to my Cricut Maker and I will show you guys how to load all these tools. So the first thing that we are going to do is load in the scoring wheel into our clamp B on our Cricut Maker. And so the scoring wheel looks like this, and it has a little 01, I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera, but it has a little 01 on the side of it so that you know which tool it is. And so all you're gonna do is open up this clamp and take out your fine point blade. I like to set mine in the little compartment on the side so that I don't lose track of it. And then you're gonna put the plastic in the front and the gears that are open into the back of this slot, just like this. So you're gonna kind of set it in there, and then you're just gonna close the metal part of the clamp and then the plastic part over top of it. And the Cricut knows what to do next. So we'll get this out of the way and I'll show you guys how I like to load my paper. So when I do paper crafting, I don't like to use a super sticky mat because I think that it can curl my cardstock way too easily. So I like to use an older green mat and then use painter's tape to actually tape the paper on. But I just think it's a lot easier, especially because you're doing such intricate cuts. You don't want to risk ripping your cardstock when you take it off of the mat or curling it up so badly that you have to recut it. So the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna put my cardstock in this direction because that's how it shows me on the screen it's going to cut. And since we need to have right at 11 inches for this design, I'm actually going to put my cardstock just inside the lines on the mat because the Cricut does move the design in just a little bit in design space. So I'll show you guys a little bit closer. I'm just inside those lines on the mat, and that way I can get my paper over the 11-inch mark without buying bigger, more expensive paper. And then I'm going to tape around the sides to make sure that my paper stays in place as it's cutting. And the blades will cut through the tape, so don't worry if you end up cutting the tape a little bit. That's not a big deal. The blades will cut right through it, and the painter's tape comes really easily off of your paper, so no big deal. And another thing I want to encourage you to do as you are cutting your sample for your invitation is that you want to make sure that you time that sample, because you need to know how long it's going to take you to make as many invitations as you need. If you're making 100 invitations, that's going to take a lot of time. The more intricate your invitation is, the longer that it's going to take you to cut that invitation. So I just want to keep that, I just want to help you guys keep that in mind so that you don't get into a project and get really in over your head and end up being frustrated. So let's go ahead and load this guy into our mat, or into our machine. All right, and then I will press the go button on my Cricut and we will see how long this guy takes to cut. When your machine is finished scoring your project, it's gonna let you know that it needs you to switch over to the fine point blade. So you don't need to unload your project. All you need to do is open up clamp B, take out the scoring wheel, and add your fine point blade back into your slot. And you guys will see that I'm actually timing my invitation on my cell phone as well, so that you can see how long it's taking this to cut. Then you just press the go button and your Cricut will finish cutting your invitation. Alright crafters, so you can see it took 23 minutes and like about 40 seconds to score and cut this invitation template. Alright guys, so this is what our invitation looks like on our cardstock. So let's take it off the mat and I'll show you how I like to assemble it. So this is where you're going to see why the less sticky mat is really beneficial for invitations, because I'm not gonna have any trouble getting this off the mat whatsoever. So what I'm gonna do is flip my mat over and I'm gonna peel it back from my invitation so that I don't have as much trouble getting the cardstock off here. You guys will see in just a second, without damaging it. And basically when you do intricate cuts like this, the nice thing is there's basically no weeding because the mat takes care of most of that for you. So that's pretty cool. You just want to be really, really careful and go nice and slow. Try not to snap your mat by bending it back too far. All right, and there you go. So that wasn't too bad. The tool that I love to use to get these little pieces off my mat is called the Little Red Scraper. It's from 651vinyl.com, and basically it's a smaller, almost like sharper squeegee, and that is really helpful because I can basically just kind of comb the pieces right off my mat. Because if you try to do this with a squeegee that's not very sharp, you won't get your pieces off very quickly and you'll spend even more time on each invitation cleaning your mat. So now that my mat is clean, let's take a look at our actual invitation. And look how pretty it is. It's so cute. And I have my score lines already conveniently on one side, which makes things so much easier. And it makes sure that when I put my invitation in here, my line is gonna be straight and I'm gonna be able to assemble it really, really easily. I know that's a little bit hard to see, but there's a score line here by my scoring wheel and a score line here as well. So the first thing you want to do is fold your cardstock on the score line. So you're going to fold inside toward that score line. You can kind of see it through the other side of the paper. So I just like to flip my paper over and then lightly do this with my finger to make sure that I'm staying on the line. And then I'm gonna use a boning tool, which you can buy from Amazon. They're like $6 or $7, but they are a great paper crafting tool. So if you are planning on making invitations, I highly recommend one of these. I will stick it in the description for you. But I'm gonna use this tapered end and I'm just going to run it along my invitation to help really deepen my crease. And this way the sides of my invitation actually lay down flat and you don't have them kind of bubbling up as much. and there's one little stray piece of cardstock that didn't come out. All right, then let's do this side. And you'll get a lot quicker at these as you plan to make more. But I hope that timing your sample helped bring you guys a little bit of clarity as to whether or not this is the template for you. Because this one only took 23 minutes and 40 seconds, which actually isn't all that bad compared to some of the really, really intricate ones I've seen. That's actually not horrible. So that's less than half an hour per piece. So you could probably assemble about one invitation per half an hour. You can use more than one Cricut, or you can see if a friend will cut some for you. So there are some ways to get around it. You can get some help, you know, but some of this stuff you just can't speed up, like the cut. So look how easy and how pretty this turned out. So when I'm using, here is the piece from Zazzle that I ended up ordering. I just did the cheapest paper, which was like the matte paper. So the glitter kind of foily stuff is simulated on here. It's not actual foil. But here's the invitation, and here's the little RSVP card with the envelope. And the way that I would assemble your invitations is I would put all of the RSVP card, if you have an information card or whatever you have, I would put that behind your invitation so that your invitation is on top if you use a gatefold card like I did. Because that way when when the recipient opens up the invitation, the first thing they see is your actual invitation. And so look how pretty this turned out, you guys. I absolutely love this look. I know it's a little bit hard to see on camera, but it's very, very subtle and pretty. If you wanted to, you could put like a piece of vellum over top of your invitation, just laying there so that it looks a little bit like clouded. You can put a belly band across here if you wanted to do that. And so I'll do some more videos on some other ways to embellish your invitations, but I just wanted to show you a quick and simple one. The next thing you would want to practice and double check is to make sure that your invitation fits in the envelope. And what I discovered is that if I was actually making these, I would have to make my invitation smaller because it doesn't fit. So that's just all kinds of things that you want to be thinking about if you decide to make your own invitations. Hey crafty brides, I hope that you learned something awesome in this video. And if you use my video to make an invitation, I would love to see what you've made. So please make sure that you check out my wedding Facebook group, which is called Cricut Brides and Wedding Crafts. And if you haven't already, please make sure that you subscribe right here to DIY Alex and ring the bell right next to subscribe so that you never miss a new upload, especially because February 2020 is going to be wedding month on my channel. So I'm going to be posting wedding videos all month long with tutorials, wedding planning tips and inspiration, and all kinds of awesome stuff, and I don't want you to miss that. But even if it's after February 2020, I'm gonna keep on posting more wedding stuff, and so you're definitely not gonna wanna miss out on that. I'm Alex Vanover, and I hope we can craft again soon.